regular Board of Education meeting to order. This evening we have 4 students from Mrs. Worth's 3rd grade class. If they could please come up, we have Piper Clark, Alyssa Serby, Avery Ball, and Pedro Dixon. So come on up here, guys. You can stand right here in front of us. And we also have Mrs. Worth is in the back here to support her students. So guys, we're going to turn around the flags here. And we'll all rise. And when you're, Alyssa. Okay, when you're ready, we're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Thank you guys very much. Okay, next I'll do roll call. Jeff.
Here.
Andy.
Here.
Bridget. Here. Tracy.
Here.
Dan.
Here.
Rob.
Here.
I am here. Next is approval of the agenda. A motion would be in order.
A motion to approve the agenda as presented. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, our True Blue Moment. This is a portion of our meeting that we have every month where we acknowledge things, exciting things that are happening in our district. And this evening we have, are we going to do Sue first? Sue Bevins. And Sue, if you can come up. Sue's going to tell us about the fresh produce pilot that the food service department has going on.
Good evening. We were lucky enough to have an opportunity to partner with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Michigan Department of Education, and Dan Earden, which is our broadline food supplier, to participate in a pilot that's been put on by the federal government by USDA. Michigan is one of 2 states, Michigan and Florida are the only 2 states participating in the pilot at this time. What it does is offer fresh lettuce to schools, piloting a program that they're thinking of using for the future for all USDA commodity foods, for all fresh produce through the USDA. Our commodity program works for every full lunch that we sell this year. Next year we get a certain number of cents worth of commodity foods, and then when we order those commodity foods, we pay a delivery fee per case, and the value of the case is then deducted from our commodity allotment. Because this is a pilot, that commodity allotment for that lettuce comes from MDE rather than from Richmond, so this is kind of like a free program for us. So it's really good from that perspective, financial perspective, as well as we are in at the ground level and we're able to offer advice on shaping this program for the future should it be implemented nationwide. Right now we're nearing the end of the first phase. They do have an RFP out for the second phase, and we are planning to participate in that as well. And they're hoping to also add fresh apples to the second phase. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Sue, for applying for that and getting our school included in that opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's real exciting for Richmond to have this opportunity to be in at the ground level of something like this. So good to have input from a district our size, I think.
And thank you for getting that done.
Thanks, Sue.
Next, True Blue Moment.
We'd like to thank the Jason Myers Memorial Foundation for their contribution of $500 in sponsorship of our athletics. Do we have representatives here?
Actually, yes, we have in the audience 2 of Jason's sisters, Sarah Foster and Stacy Leach. And we have Tracy Tackaberry. If you guys would like to come up, we have a certificate. Come on, Sarah, Stacy, come on up. The Jason Myers Memorial Foundation, Jason is a graduate of Richmond High School, and his family set up this foundation after Jason passed away, and they have done other things helping our school district. Was it last year that you put on the assembly for us? Yeah. It was last last year. Yes, that you sponsored that. So they are helping to give back in memory of their brother in very unique and wonderful ways, and we thank them and their family. So we have their certificate. Good things happen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next is our public comments. It's the portion of our meeting. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address the board, we have you come up to the podium and state your name. And there is cards up there, Terry, that you can leave your name and telephone number, and we would get back with you to answer any questions that you have. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board? No? Okay. Next, items of interest from members of the board. Does anyone have anything this evening?
Saturday, Armada is hosting the Richmond versus Armada alumni basketball game. I think there's 3 different games starting at 4:30. The game at 4:30 is the one I will be playing in. I think it's the classes from 1950 to 1998, graduating classes, to be competing against each other. So if anybody would like some good entertainment, and watch me sprain an ankle or something, feel free to come on out.
Oh, we'll be
That's
there,
at
Dan.
Armada High School.
Good deal.
I'd just like to thank the following administrators, Deb Michon, John Bardot, and Becky and Keith. Thank you for letting us come to your schools for that tour. We went 2 weeks ago, 3 of us, and it was just very nice to get to know all of you and to see all the great things that are going on in the schools. I really feel this is you guys are just doing a wonderful job, and I just like to thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay. Next, committee reports. Budget and finance. Jeff?
Budget and finance met on 12/9. Claims and accounts look good. There's a few questions in regards to mileage expense returns, or mileage and expense reports turned in monthly or quarterly. We saw some stuff that was out of the ordinary. So we also questioned student worker for athletics. We discussed pay to play and costs in respect to the two-way transportation, something we're looking at for the athletic events. We also looked at EnviroClean costs, and we talked about bond monies being put into PNC banks here locally. 2 reasons. One was they had great online services, and then they had local representation. We also talked about setting up pre-budget meetings with each school before we have our big budget meeting with the entire board.
Any questions? Thank you. Facilities. Dan?
Facilities met last week. We have a request for special building use, I guess. The 3 of us and Dr. Olson talked it over, and we are going to try and set up a meeting for next month, I believe, with the individuals and group asking to use the building to kind of sit down and get a little bit more information from them as far as how much they're going to need and that. So we'll see how that goes and see what we're going to bring to the board as far as a recommendation.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, next, student board representative report. Colleen's not with us this evening, but our administrators have gladly volunteered to give us an update on what's happening in their buildings. Mr. Benoit, we'll start with you. No, you can stand back there if you like, or you can come up so we can see you, whichever you prefer. That means everyone else will follow your lead. Good job.
That's what I did.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Mrs. Telto. Recently, the 3rd and 4th graders put on their annual Christmas concert. Appreciate Mr. Toit being there. I know he enjoyed himself. myself. Great turnout. That place was packed. There must have been over 250 people there for each performance. The fourth graders, being that they've done it once before, they really know what they're doing. They put on a wonderful show. They really enjoyed themselves. We had a ton of fun. I'd like to thank Mrs. Stewart for helping out with that. The specials teachers all work together on that. Obviously, Mr. Finley, the music teacher, does the performance, but it's nice to see that team work together. Following up on that, this Thursday we're having our traditional sing-along, where 500 children make their way to the cafeteria/gym, and at 2 o'clock we'll have our traditional sing-along to bring in the holidays. Beginning tomorrow, Wednesday, and concluding Thursday is the Santa Shop. It's our PTO sponsored event. First time we've had that. Looking forward to that. Children will be coming down Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Our student council has done a wonderful job of getting a lot of energy in the building and getting a lot of donations for Sandy's Kids program. The donations and the gifts are up a lot this year, which is wonderful to see because the need is great. It's nice to see the children participating in that event. Very happy for that. The staff luncheon, annual Christmas staff luncheon, is this Thursday. Thanks to Sue Bevins for helping us out with that, and her staff, and the PTO for their contributions to that as well. And the students are about as excited as I've seen them each day this week. I think it's going to get a little more exciting. So they are definitely looking forward to this Friday, where most of them will be having a party in their classroom, and I will be joining them. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bartos?
Thank you. Couple things. First, our PTA is looking into starting this spring a donkey basketball. We need 6 teams, so throw that invite out there now. If the board wants to have a team, that donkey basketball game, we would certainly love it. Builders, yeah, he's a basketball player, I've heard here today. So Builders Club has been doing a lot with Meadow Lodge. They will be caroling, and they've been doing holiday decorating in their halls. I've been working with Anthony Berkmeyer at our curriculum director. We're going to do the Michigan Department of Education pilot testing for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade social studies, and we get money, I believe, for that to go towards technology, many grants. Band and choir concerts are last week and this week. Last week, the band concert, 7th grade through 12th grade, the varsity band had 2 nights of concerts. They were excellent concerts. Best I've heard the band in quite a while. The choir concerts are tomorrow night and Wednesday night. The Uptown here, put on Alice in Wonderland this weekend, and our 5th and 6th grade went on a walking field trip today to check out the Alice in Wonderland, and our 7th and 8th grade went this morning to check out the performance, and quite a few of our students partook into that as well. Mrs. Brown and Miss Green have started a student positive peer support group. We're going to try to take what we learned from Rachel's challenge and piggyback off of that. You've also heard, maybe it's called Hallway Heroes or Random Acts of Kindness. They, as well as about 12 very energetic 6th grade students, are getting this moving forward. Our door decorating holiday event ended on Friday, and the winners were announced today. Canned food drive ends this week. I believe Wednesday, student council is putting on for the local food bank. And Sandy's Kids, I know our social workers are working very hard, and they've been getting a lot of donations from staff and students. And the Sandy Manzo, who was the founder of Sandy's Kids, came in last week to talk to our 8th grade students, because our 8th grade go to the Holocaust Museum. And they do a unit on the Holocaust. And although Sandy was not a direct survivor of the Holocaust, she had many family members that were and were not survivors of it through the eyes of Poland, because she and her family came from Poland. And people don't realize, they think it was just Germany, but it was pretty much that whole area. And she talked to our 8th grade students, and I will have to say that our 8th grade students were a fantastic audience for her. And last year was the first time she came and talked to our students. This year was her second time. She was much more comfortable, but she was also much more complimentary to the kids and the questions they asked and the seriousness that they took it. That, you know, we have to look at people for who they are, and that was a great message. That's it.
Thank you. Mrs. Michon?
Good evening. As Keith mentioned, we did have the band concert. He didn't mention that he had a starring role in the band concert last week as the elf. We had both of them last week. This week we do have the choir concert both on Tuesday and Wednesday. The high school is involved in a lot of Christmas activities. If you'll notice, we have our giving tree going right now. That's being done by our Key Club, and all the items there are going to Turning Point. We have our shoe collection, but I think they collected them. We had a box about this tall filled with used shoes that are being donated in the community, and we actually get money for how many pounds, and the money then is going to be donated to St. Augustine's, the food pantry here in Richmond. We have this week's student council is having activities. Jim was talking about his kids getting a little, so are we. We have costume. Today was pajama day. Tomorrow's Christmas decorations. Wednesday, if you want to see the most tackiest sweaters, please come in the building. We'll have a lot of them. And then we do Spirit Week as we go into the end of the week. We were proud, or I was very surprised to get a phone call from 42nd District Court. They have heard about our mock trial, and they are going to pay our sponsorship fee for registration this year to go to a mock trial. So Mr. Ladd was very pleased with that. He's actually here tonight working with a group of students. We are at the high school, been meeting, actually, I think we had our third meetings today with the architect, working on some of the bond issues. Our science teachers took a day to go out and visit several local buildings, looking at their science rooms so we can get some ideas about what we would like, what we don't want. So that's been very exciting actually at the high school as we work through that process. Athletic-wise, we have this Friday our first both boys and girls home basketball game against Armada. On January 3rd, our wrestling is hosting an alumni night. And on January 4th, we are hosting a cheer invitational. And I think one last thing, our staff, instead of having lunch, is having breakfast on Friday morning. So if you're in the area and you'd like some breakfast, please come in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, our consent agenda items, including claims and accounts. A motion would be in order to approve those items.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, our administrative items. Bond sale resolution, Dr. Olson.
We're fortunate to have with us this evening Beverly Bonnie from the Truman Law Firm that has been helping us daily this past week, as well as over the past several months with our bond sale and to get us to this point, as well as Craig Kaler from Fifth Third Bank. I would like to comment for the public that we did sell the bonds last Tuesday, and as a result of the offers that we received, that will result in $1,100,000 less interest over the course of that particular sale over what the earlier estimates have been. when we went out and asked the voters to approve the bond. So that initial part of this process has begun, and that came out quite favorably. Beverly, if you would like to.
Sure, I think we'll start with Craig to summarize
Okay.
the sale, and then I'll give you the dull and boring legal details.
Craig, they have at their place this that you had
Good.
sent.
Excellent. Very good. Well, on behalf of Fifth Third, I want to start by saying thank you very much for the opportunity to work with you. We're quite pleased with the results of your sale. And as Linda mentioned, we priced the bonds last Tuesday. And into a market that's been a little bit on edge right now. The municipal bond market is a little concerned about, ironically, good economic news. And the fact that there's concerns the Fed might ease their bond purchasing program. And that has somewhat of an adverse impact on the municipal bond marketplace. So we priced into a little bit of a skittish market, and also one that had probably the highest volume of all year. About $11 billion worth of municipal bonds last week. Average week has been $5 billion. So it was a big week. But the good news is we didn't have much in the way of competition from Michigan deals. So we were one of very few Michigan deals in the market last week. In your package, I have two items. On the left side is a copy of the rating report issued by Moody's Investors Service. Want to point out a couple things in there. First off, that the school district's underlying rating, so the rating that was applied to Richmond Community Schools was an A1. It's a very good rating, and that's what we're seeing in a lot of school districts in Michigan right now, is that A1. You may recall when I was here a few weeks ago, we talked about your financial condition and your budgets, and I thought at the time perhaps the rating agency was going to look favorably on that. Well, in fact, if you look at the strengths of the school district, they specifically commented that your strong financial condition and your conservative fiscal management are two of the really strong points for the school district, which generate that A1 rating. And then the offsetting factors really are many things beyond your control. Things like the tax base and the erosion of the tax base. And you obviously have nothing you can do to control that. But I thought overall a good rating. The other thing to point out as well is that you have the state of Michigan's credit rating, so you have the state's AA2 rating. You have that rating applied to your bonds by virtue of having gone through the process of getting the bonds qualified for participation in the Michigan School Bond Loan Program. So that helps because investors like to have the backing of the state of Michigan. That gives them added security that if there were, for any reason, the school district was unable to make a principal or interest payment, the state of Michigan could step in and make that. The result is they usually take a lower interest rate, which benefits your taxpayers further. So when we got into pricing your bonds last Tuesday, by the morning we had about 2/3 of them with orders already. So that was a good start to our day. And our underwriter had given us indications going into that the first 4 maturities looked really good. The second 2 maturities were the ones where we were a little bit more concerned because the investors weren't exactly as interested in those duration bonds as we were heading into it. And as it turns out, that was in fact the case. We did get a couple of orders for those later in the day, but they were orders that weren't going to be in your best interest. So what we did is, as a firm, which is what you hired the firm to do, is we underwrote those bonds. We took those bonds into our inventory. So by the end of the day, your sale's complete. Your interest rates are set, and the interest rates are set on the cover of the official statement that you have in front of you. That is what Richmond Community Schools will pay in interest over the life of these bonds. As I mentioned, we had concern about the Fed tapering, and that's the only real concern we had throughout the course of the sale. Pretty good response. Worked very closely with your financial advisor, making the decision to go with the bank-qualified securities versus just a traditional tax-exempt without that qualification. Bank-qualified also typically yields a lower interest rate because banks that invest in the bonds do get some tax incentives to purchase your securities. So all things work in your favor right now. And again, your financial advisor was with us the entire way in making that decision. I think in the morning we were talking about that decision, the bank qualified versus non-bank qualified, representing about $250,000 to $300,000 of additional savings for the district. So it made good sense to take that course of action for you. So again, I'd like to thank you, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The other document, just real quickly, is just a quick summary of the sale, and then there's a sample press release. If that's something you'd like to use, you're welcome to. If you want to modify it, feel free. But unless there's any questions, I'd like to turn it over to Beverly and have her walk you through the much more exciting than my presentation ratification resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Greg.
For the press review, districts normally do that. Is that something that normally happens?
It's your decision. I make it available to you as just something of a template. But there are districts that use them. There are districts that say, thank you very much. It's really your preference. A lot of times it's good to be able to share that with the community. And you know, you started things off on a good footing.
Right,
You've got a successful bond sale. You're saving the taxpayers money. That's good news. You want to let that roll into the work that Dale's going to do for you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be back in Richmond schools on such good news for the school district. As you recall, this has been a process that's taken quite a long period of time to get to this point, and it's all good news for Richmond. First, let me say congratulations on the passage of your bond issue on November 5th. And now the first step has been completed. The bonds have been sold, the first series. On November 18th, we brought to the Board of Education a resolution that was called an authorizing and delegation resolution. And essentially that resolution did two things. It authorized your professional team to go forward to prepare the bonds for sale, the first series. And the second element of that resolution was to delegate authority to the superintendent to lock into the interest rates if those interest rates fit within the parameters that the board established in that resolution. But that delegation was dependent upon the school district getting a written recommendation from the school district's financial advisor, Stoddard Barch and Associates, that the interest rates were market comparable and in the best interests of the school district to accept. And all those things occurred last week, and now I'm back here essentially with a ratifying resolution that I call it a ratifying resolution. It ratifies and affirms the actions of the superintendent. It's a formality and essentially closes the record at the board level. And the resolution accomplishes three things. It ratifies and affirms the actions of the superintendent in accepting the offer from Fifth Third Securities to purchase the bonds. And that acceptance was based upon the written recommendation of your FA, as I mentioned. Secondly, it authorizes the execution of all the closing documents that the president and secretary and superintendent need to sign. And I brought those documents with me tonight, the actual bonds and tax documents and certifications that I hope the board would indulge me and give us 5 minutes to get those signed, because I need to take those back to East Lansing tonight. And then lastly, the resolution affirms the use of the prospectus, which you have in front of you, which is also called an official statement. This is a very interesting booklet. Sometimes you don't expect the Securities and Exchange Commission to be at all interested in what's happening in Richmond schools or anywhere in the state of Michigan, but the Securities and Exchange Commission is interested. And what they want to be assured about is that the school district's financial information is accurate and complete when you go out into the national bond market and sell and offer your bonds. So this prospectus is used by Fifth Third Securities to market your bonds. And so the resolution does that as well. It ratifies and affirms the use of this document. The back half of the document is most interesting. It has all the financial data about the school district. You can find out who your top 10 taxpayers are. Sometimes that comes as a surprise. I live in East Lansing. One of our largest taxpayers happens to be the MEA, believe it or not. And so that came as a surprise to the school district in East Lansing. So you can find who your top 10 taxpayers are. Also, your top employers are listed in this booklet. Some history of your taxable value, the history of your population is all in this booklet and is available to review. Because this is a ratifying resolution about the issuance and sale of bonds, I'd recommend that when you adopt it, it's by a roll call vote, because it is the issuance of debt. And we'll close this transaction on December 30th, and I want to dovetail into something that Craig said. This deal was done very quickly, and I want to finish with 2 observations about that. First, you had initially thought the bonds would be sold in 2014, but there is a tax advantage in selling a portion of the bonds and issuing those bonds on or before December 31st. And that requires us to prevail upon your administrative staff, Vicki and Dr. Olson, to get this deal ready for us in a very busy time of the year when you have so many other obligations in front of you. And I want to thank both Vicki and Dr. Olson for doing that, getting this ready and responding to us in such a quick fashion. And secondly, I want to thank the community for supporting the bond issue. I've worked with Richmond schools since probably the 1990s on your school finance. And I am excited for Richmond that you will be having some of these building improvements done. And I congratulate you in that regard. Do you have any questions for Craig or me about the transaction? I also want to thank Fifth Third Securities and your financial advisor, Starter Barch & Associates. They also made this transaction a priority, and they really, both of those groups are just top-notch organizations to work with, very professional and very responsive to any questions this ornery bond counsel brings up on occasion about transactions. And they were just phenomenal to work with, and so I thank them for that. Do you have any questions for me?
Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, here is a sample resolution, and I believe we have to read, whoever makes the motion has to read the entire resolution.
No problem. No, because what you're going to do is include this resolution and attach it to your board meeting minutes. So you won't need to read it out loud.
Oh, you've just made a couple people really happy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a motion by reference, and because it's attached to the minutes.
It will be
Okay.
attached to the minutes. It's a formal resolution.
Good to know, thank you. Tracy, you lucked out there.
I was the one that gets to read it. Thank you.
Tracy's usually our resolution leader. Okay, well then a motion would be in order to adopt the resolution as presented in agenda item 11A.
Perfect. I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Do we have any discussion? Okay, I will do a roll call. Tracy,
Hi.
Dan,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Bridget, Jeff,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, bond investment. Oh, to sign first? Okay, all right, we will take a minute to sign the documents for you before we move on to the next.
That would be
Does that work?
wonderful. Do you
Well,
mind doing that?
No,
Good.
it'll take just a minute if you, do
It'll be
you have
about
them?
5 minutes. I have them all here, president, secretary, and superintendent.
Okay.
So you can take a little break and get everything signed.
All right, come on up.
Thank you.
is here because Mike couldn't make it, and Vicki and I had an opportunity to meet with Ben late this afternoon to discuss the monies that we will be depositing on the 30th of December and what type of investment strategy that Starter Barge would recommend for those funds.
Good evening. I am with Starter Barge. My responsibility is to pick up after all these fine people get their jobs done and get your bonds sold. We are very conservative in nature when we approach these, how you invest these monies. You're only going to have them for a short time, and you need to know they're going to be there when you need to pay for your school buses, your technology, and the other items outlined in your bond issue. The other thing we need to look at is timing. Since your bonds are going to be closing at the end of the year, it's pretty difficult to get into the marketplace during the holidays. People like to take vacations for some reason. I don't understand it. But what we're recommending is that we keep the money at PNC until the holidays get through. They're invested in government money market fund for a short time, maybe 2 weeks, something like that. We'll make efforts to make sure we understand what our draw schedules are. We have a preliminary one. I believe it's pretty good, but we need to invest that money so that it's there when you need it. So we'll be looking at U.S. government bonds. They may include agencies, and we'll also look at other things like everything needs to be fully backed by the federal government in one form or another. We don't want to get to where we need the money and we can't get it because there's a problem. So it's pretty simple. Government bonds, government agencies possibly. We'll take a look and see if there's an advantage to that. And there's a program that we'll also look at. It's called CEDARS, and that's fully backed by the federal government under the FDIC program. It out to meet your obligations, your time frames, and it comes due when you need it. So those are the things we're looking at. Again, we're suggesting don't try to rush into this thing. There's a phenomenon at the end of the year where a lot of money just wants to get over to the new year. And so interest rates drop. So it's not to your advantage to do that. So we'll be looking at probably the first or second week in January. We will be doing competitive bidding. Starter Barge does not provide the investments. That's not our job. We'll be looking at any bank or financial firm that you want to suggest, and we'll also look at, we deal with big wirehouses, the names that are on Wall Street, Smith Barney, and names like that, plus the large Michigan banks, Key Bank, we go to Fifth Third, and we extend offers to everybody. Anybody who wants to bid, we invite them to step up and place bids. We don't have, as I would say earlier, a dog in the fight as to who bids. We're just looking for, when we're all done, that you got the best dollar value you can get from your money, and that it's fully safe. That's it in a nutshell. Can I answer any questions? Okay. Thank you.
You have at your place a little summary of describe.
And I believe you were going to do a resolution.
Yes, and Vicki prepared a resolution that should be right behind that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I move that the bond proceeds from the bond sale shall be placed in a government money market fund over year end, and further investments will be determined through the bidding process based on the IRS safe harbor guidelines for investing proceeds from a tax-exempt bond sale. The bid will be awarded to the bidder with the highest dollar return for the portfolio, and we will revisit the process upon sale of the next series of bonds.
Second. It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call. Dan.
Aye.
Tracy.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Bridget. Candy.
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Thank you. from French Associates as our architect, and Chip Hendricks from RC Hendrick and Son as our construction management firm. Chip sent me an email this afternoon that he had to cover for someone who was out ill tonight for another meeting. He did work last week to get the draw scheduled to us in a timely fashion so that we were able to move forward with looking at an investment strategy. So we appreciate that, and he will try to be at our next board meeting to meet with his legal committee as well. So we have Dale Jerome, and we've met a couple times with our science teachers and with our track athletic team, and talking about a lot of different things at this point. So I'd like you to update us.
Yes, I had a keen sense that you might actually have some money to spend on facilities, so I decided to come this evening.
Dale, hold on. I'm not sure that everyone sitting here has met Dale. Is that correct? On board, Dale Jerome from French and Associates. Dale has a long history of working with Richmond schools and bond issues. Dale and I go back a couple of years.
Let's not mention ages.
Yeah, we won't mention how long, but we go back a couple of years. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone sitting here found out who you were and where you're from and all the good stuff.
I think when I started, my hairline was 2 fingers, and now it's all 4. If I could, if there are, I just quickly give you a little snapshot. I think I provided a schedule to Linda last month for the meeting last month, which she shared with you. And in a nutshell, we are off and running. We have begun to meet with the administration and some of the staff for specific areas like the science addition, as well as the track area, which will be reconstructed. In the simplest fashion, if you remember the detailed list that was in the bond application, that's our recipe, and we will follow that very closely. As I jokingly have said several times already, just because I write something down as a possible additional item to consider does not mean that it will happen. It just means that I wrote it down. Nothing more than that. Now, if we have savings and we can follow them within the ballot language and the intent of the bond, we'll certainly consider those things. But the list that's in the bond application is our list, and that's what we're working towards. So, and in real simple terms, our goal is in early March to have a biddable set of documents to go on the street for construction bids. In April, you would be reviewing that as a board and hopefully making an award to contractors who would do the work, and they would have the month of May to get things set up and ready so that when school ends at this end of this current school year, the construction manager would have them start in earnest. And the remodeling work for the most part will take place during the summer months. We do anticipate that the science wing will extend into the school year and that you would occupy that new addition after the first semester. So it's a very accelerated schedule. Many of our other projects that will begin construction in this coming summer were bond issues that passed in May or in August, but that's okay. We're gonna make it happen for you. So we're excited to be back, and I'm personally excited to be able to be part of this again. So I don't know if you have any questions. I'm sure there will be more when we get further into the details, but we are worried. We've already met twice with the science teachers, and they've done a great job of providing me their insights already. So within the next month, we should be coming back to you in the next month or two with a fairly definitive snapshot of what the science edition will look like. So you can critique that and give us your input on that.
Excellent.
Is the method a firm fixed price, or how does that work?
I'm sorry?
Is it a firm fixed price contract, or how's the contract work with you?
With our firm,
As we put it out for bids, I'm just curious on how that's gonna, the contract as it gets the work?
Oh, for the contractors.
Is it fixed
There will
price
be, it will be issued by the construction manager in a variety of trade packages. It will be competitively bid, and all of those will be then reviewed and brought back to you for individual consideration.
We approve all of the bids.
I'm just curious how we deal with potential cost overruns and all that stuff, but maybe that's another day, but.
Oh, no, that's a great question. Number one, our goal is to have as thorough a set of documents so that any questions are answered before the bidding phase. It's inevitable that there may be some things that come up during the construction phase. Those are reviewed heavily by our firm and the construction manager, and then only brought to you if we believe that there's a legitimate claim for additional services. They're also scrutinized. Any numbers that we would recommend for additional costs are heavily scrutinized to make sure that they're the same price or as near as possible to what you would have paid on bid day.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next, our overnight trip to Washington DC request.
Okay, 2 seconds, I'm gonna go get Mr.
Okay, I thought I saw him a few minutes ago.
Well, we kept adding your
Okay.
longer, so I don't
Okay.
know if I will discuss.
Can we move this to freshman school year?
No, because he's right here, so we can. Yeah, but I don't want Dave coming up here. Okay. Because we'll need a second. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I was working with Mark Twan, sorry.
Yep. No problem. How are you?
Good, thank you. Okay. What can I tell you?
Just tell us a little bit
Oh, okay.
about the trip,
This is
what
our,
exactly you're asking us.
Oh, all right, this is our fifth trip that we've done with the kids to Washington. We've got 10 who want to go this year, so it'll be 10 students, 4 adults. So we've got a good ratio there. We're going to leave on April 30th. Delta, fly out of Metro the morning of the 30th, land in Baltimore, take a shuttle down to DC. And we'll be there until the 3rd of May. On the 3rd of May, we'll shuttle back to Baltimore and take a non-stop flight again back to Detroit. We'll get back about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Okay, the cost of the students is $610, of which there's no fundraising. Actually, I would rephrase that. Mom and Dad will do whatever fundraising Mom and Dad need to do that. But we're not selling anything or doing anything like that along that line. The highlight of the trip would be our meeting with Senator Levin. This will be his last time, as you know, he's leaving office. So he's been very good to us. He meets with us every time we go. Spends a lot of time with the kids, and his office is kind of excited about it because again, this will be the last time he gets to address the kids. And we'll on this kind of itinerary is we do our mall, do the whole mall walk, a nice 6.3 miles around. We do that Wednesday when we get there. Thursday we do the Capitol, meet with the Senator, Library of Congress, Arlington, then the Smithsonian and the Treasury the next day. Then we'll come home. In the
documents I filled out for you. I contact the papers, they come out and interview the kids beforehand. Then they're not as good about coming out and interviewing them after as I would like. What the experience really was, here's what we thought, sort of thing. But that's they've been real good about at least getting us in the local news about here's what our kids are going to do. So it's a fun time, simply put.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So.
There's a sample resolution.
I move to approve the overnight AP government trip to Washington, D.C. for the dates of 4/30/2014 through 5/3/2014 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion or questions? We'll just thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
It's a good time.
thank you for taking the kids. It's a great experience.
Yeah, my senior trip, we went to DC and New York City and all that stuff. And, in a week's time, we had a lot of stuff packed in. But it's amazing what I can still remember from DC and all that to this day. So it is something the kids will remember for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and thank you. And I can't emphasize again, when they meet with the senator, he's so good with them. He's so good with them. Yeah. He is. He's great. Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
trip.
We will.
Next, Dr. Mylager, fall freshman sports update.
Does everyone have a copy of the spreadsheet? There are two columns. There's an expense column and then also an income column. Our income for football and volleyball comes from the gate admissions and the selling of family passes, and also the pay to participate income is included in that column. And with the two sports together, we raised just under, I shouldn't say raised, but we brought in just under $6,000. Our expenses include the coaches' salaries, officials, and transportation. Those totals for the two sports that we have in the fall brought in cost us just over $6,800, leaving us a deficit of $865.95. That money will come from monies that I raise by hosting different tournaments and events for the MHSAA here at our school, as well as a check I get from Coca-Cola each month.
You're talking the events that you're going to have coming up is what you're saying.
Yes. Yep, we are hosting 4 events for the state for wrestling. I'm not sure about spring yet because they haven't made those awards yet.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Dave? No. Nope. Thank you. Might as well stay right there,
That's right.
Because you're still next. Okay.
Get me while you can.
Yeah, exactly. Next item, athletic drug testing. Excuse me.
Before Dave gives us an explanation, he asked me about the handout packet, and I looked at it quickly and thought it would probably be easier for you to have it be supporting to refer to after he's given kind of an overview. So that's why it wasn't included in your packet. I just thought it would be less overwhelming.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave.
Last year, the BWAC athletic directors met, and Don Gauthier from Imlay City presented us with some information on drug testing of student athletes at the high school level. There really wasn't a lot of support or interest within our league, but in talking with some of the administration here at our school district, Dr. Olson asked me to gather some more information and just provide you with an informational packet that we could maybe look at should you felt that this is something that the district might want to look into. The first page of the packet that I provided you gives information on a 12-panel drug test strip. And drug test is very, very simple. You obtain a urine sample from an individual, and the test strip is put into the urine sample for about 15 seconds. You close it off and check the results about 5 to 10 minutes later. If it's positive, the colors will light up on the panel test. I was supplied, this is a 10-panel test that was supplied to us by Ready Test, and it's relatively inexpensive. If you purchase 500 of the tests, they amount to about $3 a piece, which I don't know if anybody has purchased them at the stores. You can purchase them at the pharmacies. They go for anywhere from $80 to $100, and they don't test as many things as you get on these panels. There's an overview of what types of drugs that can be detected by these panel tests. On the 12-panel test, it will check for cocaine, marijuana, opiates, amphetamines, methamphetamines, PCP, benzodiazepines, barbiturates, methadone, oxycontin, ecstasy, and propoxyphene. It also gives you the detection period and the level that it can test for. At the bottom of the page, it lists the different street names and often what the drugs are referred to. The second section of your packet, I've included the drug testing policy from Grand Blanc High School, who is the only high school in the state that currently randomly checks their student athletes. It is not something where they test all of their athletes, it's done randomly. They instituted this policy 10 to 12 years ago, and made it mandatory for athletes and their parents to sign off that they realize that their son or daughter may be randomly tested. If they do not sign off, they do not participate in athletics at their school. Many people have challenged the policy in courts, and it's always been upheld. And the goal of the reason that they started this years ago in Grand Blanc, they had seen a continual rise of narcotics, drugs, and alcohol in their community, and they felt that they needed to do something to try to curb that and try to do what's best for the students and making them aware of the harms of alcohol, drugs, and narcotics. The goal of their policy is not to kick kids out of sports, it's to catch them while they can and allow them to get some type of counseling and awareness about programs for them and their families. So that's included also. The third and final section are just a bunch of articles that were found in the newspaper when Grand Blanc was going through the process of determining whether or not this is something that they would do with their student athletes.
Does anybody have any questions?
You said it was brought up at the BWAC AD meeting. Was it something that was on the agenda, or were you asking questions, or how did it come up?
The athletic director at Emily City was asked to investigate possibly doing something at their school, and he just provided us with information.
So there's other districts, people in other districts
Have talked
discussing that
about it,
option
yes.
also?
Yes.
David talks about how and who does the testing. Am I looking at that it's saying school district employee conducts the testing?
Initially, when Grand Blanc started it, their athletic department handled the testing and the results and all that, and the results are kept strictly confidential too. Since then, and I don't know why they didn't share that information when I met with them last month, nobody from the district does that. They bring an outside company. This test here is about $3.13 or $3.12 it came out to be. They have brought an outside company in, and it costs them anywhere from $60 to $65 to hit for one test now because of the having to bring this company in to do the testing.
what's your thoughts on random as opposed to mandatory? You know, because you said, and it's just informational, we're just chatting, I'm not holding you to it.
No,
but
I
I'm
understand.
looking at it and I'm just, what would be the, because you said grand blank, theirs is random. Is that what you just said? Okay.
They're about 3 times larger than us, and they test 50 to 60 student athletes. There's twice during the fall they test, twice during the winter, twice during the spring. They test around 25 to 30 each testing period.
But they still, their policy still is if you're gonna participate in Grand Blanc, you sign up that you know that this random testing is gonna be done. So you sign up for that
Yes.
right from get-go,
And
everybody.
that's the last form in the second section, I believe. Is the drug testing authorization
Oh,
form.
okay. So that basically is saying
That they realize
we're
there's a
gonna do this
potential.
possibly.
Yep.
Okay.
Your son or daughter, and it's all computer generated. It's not every other person on the list, or they randomly pick who they feel like. It's a software program that generates and picks kids at random.
Very random.
So without reading all the packet, Dave, I guess up front I would ask, I'm not sure why they do, is it a test that they started just on student athletes? So they thought there was a perceived problem with just student athletes, or why don't they
Their
do this
community
random
had
testing on
their
all the
community
student
had a problem, and this is going back 10, 12 years ago, that prompted them to
with just student
In their
athletes?
athletic program.
Yes.
Is what you. And you just, that,
So who picks up the tab for counseling or the help?
the families.
Families. Just thinking this is a slippery slope. Good
it's an
information,
interesting
but-
slope, yeah. I made me forget my question. Sorry. Shoot. So you're bringing this to us because,
I was asked
You
to
think
research it more
right,
than we did last year.
okay, yep.
You were asking my opinion if it was something that having lost a child in an accident because of drunk driver, you have a zero tolerance for drugs and alcohol. That's something that's dear to me. So
We were talking about different educational programs that we could bring to the district as a administrative team, and we had with the board. And he mentioned that Grand Blanc was doing this, and he'd like me to bring back more information, and I highly encouraged him to do so. I don't think, we need to always be looking for new information and new ideas and taking the best of what's being done elsewhere, and considering it for our situation.
Did Grant Blank share with you committing to hearing these articles? The the kind of input that they had as they moved forward in implementing this. I mean, did they were there parent groups that they met with to discuss what parents would feel about this? Was there a student group that they met with to chat with, or how did that?
I know that they had some heated school board meetings when they were discussing whether or not to implement.
Sounded like you're reading the articles.
I think there was more support than resistance from parents. I think sometimes people are afraid to really face the facts of what might be happening in their families' lives too. Sometimes, far too often, we know things that are going on and we turn our heads to that. We always say that athletics is an extension of the classroom. And I hope that
challenges and they've been upheld. And you know, through Grand Blanc there, you're saying, or other places besides Grand Blanc?
People in the Grand Blanc community have challenged the policy, feeling they didn't have to take part in it, challenge the process if their child tested positive, challenge those things in courts, and every time anything's been challenged with regards to their policy has always been held up in court.
But they are currently the only one.
They are the only one in the state of Michigan, yes.
Is there talk from other districts looking at what Grand Blanc's doing and going that direction from the interaction you have around the state with other?
No, we have not come in contact or heard of anybody else that's looking to do such things.
I think it's pretty brave for districts to do this. I think it's pretty telling, and things that are happening all around us, that this isn't necessarily a bad thing. And in reality, it could possibly be a very good thing all the way around, because things like this, I think, just opens up so many doors to so many different people and different families of what's happening, and being able to educate, when I talk the whole community, everyone, not just those that have kids in the school, but in the whole community. I think, personally myself, looking at something like this would be a huge step for Richmond to take, huge. I personally believe that, maybe the time has come, and it's something to seriously think about and look into. But I think, along with what Tracy's saying, we would need to do a whole lot of things with this, with our community and our parents, our staff, everything, to get, if this was a direction we thought as a board we wanted to go, to get something like this to happen. I'd like to see if the board, since we didn't get to look at this, I'd like to read the articles more. I don't know about everyone else, but I'd like us to at least make sure we all read it and think about it, and possibly talk about doing something, or thinking about doing something like this sometime in the future, whether it be, next school year or whatever. But I think it's something we should really look at.
Yeah, for me, kind of like what Andy had said, why is it just the student athletes? And, for me, it should be the whole student body.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's a whole bigger thing of how you want your world to be. So would everyone be in agreement that we would look at this and read it, and possibly, if we have some more questions, with Dr. Olson or you, or even our administrators that are sitting out there that are involved in a lot of other things besides just athletics, that it's something to talk about.
Yeah, clearly with what we've seen, there's definitely problems.
Well, and I think this, along, with a really great educational plan, I think it's really important.
Absolutely.
That we have those discussions and add that into the educational plan.
Absolutely.
Thank you for putting this together. This is
Absolutely.
took a lot of work.
And we appreciate it, because it has been a discussion that we here and there have been having, so we really do appreciate that you took the time to do it and bring it to us. Okay? So you'll be hearing more from us down the road. Okay,
you.
thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Dave, appreciate it. Annual summer tax resolution.
Summer.
Yes, summer.
Okay, each year, I bring before the board a resolution to request our municipalities to collect our taxes in the summer versus collecting them in December. What that does for us, especially for the general fund, is it brings in dollars into the general fund to pay our bills until we get our first state aid payment in October. So it's helps our cash flow tremendously. That way we don't have to borrow as much in our annual cash flow borrowing. So just requesting that we request our municipalities to collect their taxes in the summer. And we do that. I just send them a letter, and then they send me a letter just agreeing to do so.
Okay, there is a sample resolution.
We don't need to read this whole.
That's what we
right?
just learned this evening, yes.
Um,
So you're off the hook again, Tracy.
This is good. I make a motion to approve the annual summer tax resolution as presented.
Or
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Vicki.
Thanks, Vicki.
Next, cafeteria plan.
Now, you're really gonna like that you don't have to read these resolutions.
I read those.
Since they're multi pages. Recently, the IRS made some changes in the Section 125 cafeteria plan to allow employees to, there's more flexibility with the new rules. One of the new rules is that if the board elects to adopt these modifications, that an employee could carry over $500 of funds from a cafeteria plan into the next fiscal or next cafeteria plan year. And that would not limit the $2,500 that they are allowed for the current year in that they would normally be able to put into that. The other change is that they would be able to adjust their plan one additional time during the year. So if they saw that they were going to need something further that they didn't anticipate, they could make one additional change. So it really is a couple good features to add to a cafeteria plan that may benefit some employees at different times over the course of their career. So I would recommend that we approve these. I did contact Stephen Lowe after he sent out the information on these updates and asked him to give us the revisions since he did our cafeteria plan, and that is what was provided here. Okay, the first resolution, a motion would be in order to approve.
How many resolutions are there?
I think there's at
Three?
least four. I thought it was four. How many? One,
Four.
two,
Four?
Yeah.
3, 4.
For motion. I make a motion to approve all four of the cafeteria plan resolutions presented to us.
Support?
Dan, is that you?
Yes.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
So these all have to do with healthcare things, am I right? Did I read all those right? That's what they have to do with, right? The savings accounts?
Or items that a Section 125 plan could cover. If you put 2,500 in and carry over 500, a child care could be paid out of a cafeteria plan. That's an acceptable use of it, so something like that.
I just was reading, maybe in the other plans that we've had before us or something, or maybe I just didn't read clearly then. But people have to forfeit money that's in those?
Yes,
If they don't
the way a
do something
cafeteria
within
plan
the
works
limit.
by IRS rules is you sort of guess what you, what your needs are going to be for the year, and
Okay.
that's tax deferred money. So you don't want to put more in there than what you anticipate. Presently, we don't have anyone participating in our cafeteria plan, but as things change, they may.
Right.
Especially with this rule, because that allows a lot more flexibility.
Got it.
But if you know you're going to have some big dental expenses
Right.
or some large co-pays or something like that, then you might want to use
I see.
a Section 125 plan. And if you can make one change during the year, that will make that a little easier to manage as well.
Amy, do you have a question?
Well, I've seen these before with a lot of healthcare plans will tell you change of life items, you know, someone got married, you added a child, or I just don't know if you want to make it wide open where they can change it for anything. If no one's on a cafeteria plan now, and maybe it's not a big deal, but it's workload for everyone to go in there and change once. So I don't know if we need to put restrictions on it. I don't know.
I don't think we do at this point in time, because people who have HSAs, which is quite a large number of us, they don't like to use this. For the most part, not that we couldn't, but it's less need.
Good. Okay, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we come to our second public comments portion of the meeting. If there's anyone out in the audience who would like to address the board, now would be the time. Okay. Next, agenda items to be included at the next meeting.
I expect to have the contracts for the architect, the construction manager, and the technology consultant. Because they need to be reviewed by council before I can bring them to you, and that is in process. Those are the immediate items. We'll probably be revisiting maybe Dave's presentation.
Probably not in January.
Probably not in January.
No,
We'll have our
probably not.
reorganization meeting in January
Yep.
for one thing.
Yep. And we're doing it the same night. We're doing the organizational meeting and the regular meeting at the same night.
The 13th.
Yes, still the 13th. Okay. Okay. Anything
And
else?
it's a 6:30 start, right?
6:30 start, yes. Anybody have anything else? Okay, next would be a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support?
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned, looks like 8:27.